everybody, and welcome back to the Just One More Level podcast. I am your co-host, John.
And I am Christian.
And
Co-host
today,
Christian.
co-host Christian.
Co-host.
And today, we played a little bit of Ghostbusters for the everything.
For the everything, basically, yeah.
Yes,
What were the
originally, it originally came out on as a cross-platform game on the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 3, as well as the Xbox and 360, and I think maybe a GameCube and Wii really slipped in there. It lay dormant for a long time, and it was recently, a couple years ago, remastered and re-released for all of the current gen systems at the time, PS4, Xbox One, and the Switch. And we played it on the Switch. I just happened to have it on the Switch. I got it on sale, I think, about a year ago, maybe. And I played a little back then, but I left it for a while, and I said, hey, we're doing a Halloween special. We need a few games to play, so let's throw Ghostbusters in there, because I can't think of anything more seasonal for me around the Halloween holidays than Ghostbusters. So,
right. So you mentioned this year was a remaster. I actually haven't looked into the history of the game or anything. I just played a bit of it for the podcast here. So when you say remaster, did they like completely redo it, or is it essentially the same game, just, you know, with a coat of paint over it?
It's the same game with a coat of paint, yeah.
Okay.
It's it was just tuned,
I think,
a little bit. The resolution was pumped up, and I think they've they probably redid some of the UI. I think was redone a little bit.
It's interesting that you mentioned it being on the Nintendo Wii, because if it was, that actually I think would have probably been one of the better ways to play it, because one of the main mechanics of this game, of course, you're a Ghostbuster, so you're running around with the what's it called? The proton pack, or whatever the heck it is. Yeah. And you're shooting that at ghosts and trying to trap them and things, because you're a freaking Ghostbuster. So I think that would be awesome with the Wii mode, actually, instead of using a joystick for that, trying to, you know, aim it around on there. And PC mouse as well, I think would actually work pretty well. Not as fun as a Wii mode, maybe, but still.
Right.
But so what is you're a massive Ghostbusters fan, John? I'm fairly certain.
Yes.
So I think you would be able to explain what is this? This is set after the movie, right?
Yes. After the second movie.
Okay, take it from there. Yes. Go ahead. Tell us what it's all about.
So yeah, I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan. I have Ghostbusters as the background on my phone. I love the movies. I own the movies. I have a ton of merch. I have a proton pack of my own. And several cups and different things like that. So, and loving memory of Harold Ramis, if anybody's watching the video, by the way. Because of the original 4 Ghostbusters actors, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, and Willie Nelson. That's not his name. I always forget Nelson's name, and I feel horrible about it. Ernie Hudson. It's Ernie Hudson. Harold Ramis has passed away. He passed away towards the beginning of last decade. So this game was the remastering at the very least was dedicated to his memory. So that's nice. He and Dan Aykroyd wrote Ghostbusters, and they didn't direct it though. Harold Ramis was a pretty good director though. He directed the original Vacation with Chevy Chase, and he was pretty prominent in the 80s along that cast of people. But anyway, so this game is the unofficial Ghostbusters 3. The Ghostbusters 3 had been in development for decades, but there was a bit of a falling out between Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd. So they had tried for such a long time to get this project off of the ground. And the script for this game is the script that they had been workshopping for years for Ghostbusters 3. So they finally got them to agree to do a project together, and they decided to reboot the franchise in the guise of a video game. So that is what we have here. There's a ton of references. There's a ton of bantering amongst the characters that were in the old movie, and everybody loved it. Everybody that was a fan of Ghostbusters was a huge fan of this game, because they were
all of them.
They were a fan of the reunion. Everybody came back, you know what I mean?
Jonathan and I, we always talk a little bit about the games, and I'm no huge Ghostbusters fan or anything. I think it's fine, but I've never seen the second. I don't know all the little details and everything like John or you know, a big fan would. But I definitely have problems with it as a game. Story-wise, it seems fine. Like no real complaints or anything. It's got some cute little quips thrown in there, little humorous moments and things like that. And the gameplay itself is fine. You know, I don't have any major complaints with it. It handles okay. My problem with it, let me just go ahead and get this out there, because it's the only serious problem that I had with it, is that, and if you're watching the video, you'll probably see it here and there. There are cutscenes just constantly, just little tiny short cutscenes that pull you out of the game, show you a 1-line or 2-line or whatever of dialogue, and then puts you right back in it. And every time it does that, it just, you know, it stutters, pulls up the cutscene, and then takes you out of the experience, and then kind of puts you back into it. And I hate it. I can't. I don't. Why? It's so much. It's so often, and it really ruins the gameplay experience for me personally. And then some of the other little quips that I had about it. Now that you've mentioned it being a kind of a remaster, kind of just an older game brought to modern times, kind of make a little bit more sense. Like some of the cutscenes and things didn't quite look as nice as what I would have expected a more modern game to look.
Right. Yeah.
Some of the the lip syncing and things were a little bit off in cutscenes, and just some of the production value, I guess, wasn't quite where I would have expected a modern title. But
right.
If it was originally made as a PS2 game or something, I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
Right.
I can understand a bit of that. Same with the voice acting too. That was another thing that didn't seem quite as well put together as something in this day and age.
Bill Murray was the only one at that point, I believe, that had done any major voice work. He was the voice of Garfield in the early 2000s.
Oh, right. Yeah. Never thought of that.
So I don't think the rest of them had really done any major voiceover work other than, ADR, which is dialogue replacement that they do in movies. If you can't pick up audio on set, just for anyone that doesn't know, if you can't pick up audio on set, you go back into the studio later and re-record your dialogue, and it's the sound engineer's job to make it sound good and like it's happening in the real world. Bad ADR is always so easy to pick out, but good ADR usually goes underappreciated because you don't realize it's ADR.
That's how you know it's good. Yeah, if you don't realize that they've done it, then they did their job.
Right. So anyway, I love the cutscenes, but for a very specific reason. I don't think that it's necessarily well balanced in the game. Like, it's not completely necessary. They could have done what they're doing right here. They could have quipped and had these cutscenes as you're running around doing the action or exploring or whatever they're doing, because they do that too. I really like the cutscenes because of my fangirling of the franchise and because of the knowledge that Harold Ramis has passed away. So any extra content with Harold Ramis in it is good for me because I just like seeing him in the role. I like seeing him there and present and doing what he's doing. I think that's amazing, But other than that, I definitely understand it does detract from the experience a little bit when you're just getting into it and you're figuring out how to use your equipment and you're figuring out the mechanics, and then all of a sudden it just kind of like it stops and then you're watching a movie. And that's something else to keep in mind. These guys were movie makers. They were actors, directors, producers, and writers of film, so they knew how to construct a scene when it came to film. But this is the first time they'd ever written a video game, and you have to have that creative balance of the devs to come in and say, hey, I think this is kind of dragging the pace down. But
that's the thing.
I don't
like from
know
a writing standpoint, I don't disagree with what they've done. Right, the writing seems fine, at least in the first hour or so. It's just the way that the writing was then delivered to the player that I have a problem with personally. Right, they could have kept it the way it was with all of the little quips that they have back and forth and the dialogue and the exposition and all of the little Easter eggs and things. They could have glad they put that stuff in there for the fans. That's awesome. But to take you out of the experience just every few minutes is inexcusable in my personal opinion. I don't see the point in it. It really ruins the experience for
that's fair. And it really drags
as a game.
It really drags too on a modern game. This feels very much like a modern game. They did a really good job with the remaster, and it kind of drags on that when you're thinking about it in the context of a modern game. If this was on the PlayStation 2, it probably wouldn't get to me as much. I don't think it might but I don't think I would notice it as much if I was sitting down playing this on the PlayStation 2 and like looking back, because we've said a few times on the channel, when we play something that's old, we try to look at it through the lens of someone who would be playing it new when it came out. Right. And like within that context. So that person in 2006, or I think it was 2006 or 7, that person has never played the new Tomb Raider or the new God of War and experienced these like seamless endgame moments.
But as we know, God of War, one of my favorite games series out there, and that was one example that I was going to point out. Like, those games originally also came out on the PS2, and I can't imagine playing through God of War and every time I took 10 steps, or made it to the next area, it transitioning to a cutscene. I can't imagine playing and enjoying that game if that were the case. So even for the time, I don't think the number of cutscenes in this game was acceptable, in my opinion. But as I said, that is my only major qualm with the first couple hours of this game, though, other than one other little issue that I mentioned to John already. The game, unless I missed it, which is perfectly possible, the game never really tells you that you have to set your own trap to put the ghosts in. Sometimes the other Ghostbusters will do it for you. Sometimes you have to throw it down yourself. Apparently, I never got that message. I didn't even know there was a button for that. I had to end up looking it up, and it meant that
he does mention it at one point that you can hit Y to throw a trap.
Like I said, I very well may have just missed that part, but regardless, like I spent way too long on one of the bosses because I just didn't know that, hey, I had to throw my own trap down. down. And
Right.
so that was a little bit of annoying, but I fully admit that may have been user error. Like I may have just missed the message saying that,
Right.
you
Right.
know,
Right.
you have to throw your own out sometimes, or how to
Hmm.
throw your own out or whatever. So that's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
perfectly reasonable. I may have missed it.
Okay. Yeah, like I'm pretty sure they mentioned it at some point, but it's it's not that big of a because you're right. It's weird because they sometimes do it and then they sometimes just don't.
Yeah.
And there's no like
Consistency.
there's no consistency with whether or not they're doing it. So I have a question. Did you look into whether or not this is multiplayer
I
like
haven't.
compatible?
I
Because they have a unique system for when you go down in the game. So
Oh
I guess
yes. Yeah.
we didn't do like a breakdown of what is going on in the game like we usually do. We just kind of jumped right into the gameplay. But for
Right.
anybody
Right.
that's curious, so you play as a new recruit, the fifth Ghostbuster. I'm not really sure why this game is in third person. I think it would work very well in first person. It might be a little easier to control, like the proton pack and stuff. I think I personally would have preferred a first person display with like a HUD that shows you like your power level for your proton pack and stuff like that. Because you go into first person quite a lot later on, especially when you get to the hotel. When you're looking through your PKA meter and your goggles and you're trying to find stuff. And I thought that was perfectly fine. I don't understand why it was in third person, but I digress. I went off on a little bit of a tangent here. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up before I forgot about it. Anyway, you play as a new recruit. You're the fifth Ghostbuster. You don't have a name. They make a little joke about it. Bill Murray says, no names, so we don't get attached because we're going to
Yeah.
test out a bunch of
Yeah.
new equipment with this kid. And that's fun. But you just follow the Ghostbusters aimlessly. You have no idea what's going on. They just explain to you what is going on and how to use this equipment before you get a proper test because they get a call to go to the hotel to capture Slimer and a few other ghosts. And it's the hotel from the first movie. The first scene where the Ghostbusters get to test out their stuff and prove their worth takes place in that hotel, that first level that you go to. So that's a nice callback. But you're in there and you're running around and a bunch of stuff is happening and they're just kind of feeding you information about how to use your equipment and how to do what it is you do as the level is progressing, which is kind of nice because you're playing an official level where you do have like consequences. Question mark. There's not really a game over. There's not really a death scenario.
Yeah, and it seems like doing the damage and things like that to the area is more or less encouraged. Does it actually give you more money for doing damage, or does it just keep
no,
track?
that it keeps track, and I believe it docks it when you're done with the official level.
Okay, because like
I think you get less
in the
of a
middle of the
paycheck
level, I
'cause they
still
have to
made
charge you.
thousands of dollars. So while
Yeah,
playing
well,
the
you
level,
get that you get money for catching a ghost, and you get
Right.
money for recovering artifacts that are haunted.
Okay.
So
I wasn't
if you
sure because,
happen
like I
to
said,
pick
I
up,
remember it constantly popping up like every time I would do damage to something, and
Yeah.
and it seemed in some way connected to my money, but I didn't know if it was giving me money for destruction or what the case was. I just
Yeah.
knew that in the middle of a level, I was somehow earning cash because I was able to do, I think, 2 upgrades
Yeah.
just on the first mission there.
yes, I got about 4 in my time playing because I recovered 2 or 3 of the artifacts. I think 3.
I think I got 1 or
'cause
2. Yeah.
I was really looking this time around, the first time I played this game, I remember feeling kind of frustrated, just with the controls and trying to figure out what was going on. I do remember that. So to be fair, this is the second time I've tried to play it, and I played about the same amount this time, but I had a way easier time this time, and I'm not really sure why.
I look at the controls kind of like Resident Evil, the classic Resident Evils or something like that, where they are a little bit awkward. Some of the buttons aren't necessarily what I would like, don't do exactly what I would expect them to do. But again, like Resident Evil, though, I feel like it's the sort of thing that you would get used to, right? After the first couple hours of playing, it would just come natural to you because I don't think the controls are laid out poorly per se, like in a way that would make it hard to play. It's just not like the jump button isn't necessarily what the button I would expect it to be, or whatever the case may be. The running is a little bit weird in this game too because you can sprint, but it's kind of tight. Like you kind of, it's more or less just made to run straight whenever you're running. You can turn, but it's very awkward doing so.
It is. I avoided it. I usually just like would run on a straightaway to try to catch up to something,
right?
And then I would just stop doing that and focus on doing something else. It was never like a thing you could just do all the time, which was kind of annoying. But yeah. So anyway, I don't know much of the story actually because I've never played past this point. I know that from other fans, they've said that the story gets really good. It has something to do with like the Ghostbusters going to hell or something. I don't know.
That's
I don't
unexpected if that's the case. Yeah. What?
Yeah. I don't think like going to hell in the sense that like Bill and Ted went to hell in the second Bill and Ted movie, like literally. But I think that it has something to do with like hell opening up, which was referenced in the first movie, but it was never fully realized because they were able to stop Gozer. But you do see the Gozer name in a Ghostbusters exhibit at the beginning of the movie. So I'm not sure if they're going to try to bring that back or how that relates to everything. I know that has something to do with the new movie. A lot of the old Ghostbusters Ghostbusters ghosts are back in the new movie. So, because they just kind of gave up on that all-female reboot thing, and they're just making a direct sequel now.
Right, yeah.
That'll be coming out next month.
Just to interject real quickly, I did look up to see the whole multiplayer situation. It appears, something could have changed from the articles that I was reading here, but it appears as if the original games did have multiplayer.
Okay.
And then the developer of the remaster promised it, essentially, that it was coming, but then they went dark and never ended up including it. So it seems, sadly, it seems as if the remasters here do not include a multiplayer mode, but if you were to pick it up on like the PS2 or Xbox or whatever, then you would have that option of playing with friends.
Yeah, because the what we're referring to is when you go down, when you take too much damage, you just kind of drop and one of the party members recovers you.
Yeah,
they go over and you hit a button.
Essentially. Yeah.
Right, and that'll happen frequently during fights to the other Ghostbusters. You have to go revive them.
Or yourself if you're bad at this game, which I wasn't very good at it, I admit.
Right. So that's like a thing, that's a thing you would include for a party system in a multiplayer scenario.
Yeah.
So that's what got me thinking about it, but I never had a chance to test it out because I just own a Switch Lite. I don't have an actual Switch, so I couldn't multiplayer with anybody, but at least not co-op.
Well, I mean, they could have had like online or something. Could have been a thing.
Yeah.
It sadly it appears as if they had never added it to it.
Right.
Well, as far as this game goes, I personally don't have much more to say about it. Really, I think it's a pretty good game for fans of the movies, right? Who really want to get more of the Ghostbusters story. And then as John's mentioned here, which cast member was it that passed away?
Harold Ramis, Egon, the tall one with the glasses.
And so he's passed away, but this was, he actually took part in this game, so it's like an official thing with him in it. And one of the last things that he did, I imagine.
Yes. It's one of the last things he did. After that, he just kind of took a step back from the industry, started directing things like that. He directed quite a few episodes of The Office before he passed.
Okay.
So that was pretty interesting. But it was. This is the last possible Ghostbusters media with all of the Ghostbusters.
The original
present.
cast. Yeah.
Yes, all of the original cast are present for this thing, and that can't ever happen again. So that's why it's special to a lot of fans. But it's
wonky. Other than that, though, I don't really see
wonky.
Like as a non Ghostbusters fan, like mega fan at least. Again, I don't have a problem with the series. I don't see myself ever really going back to this one. I just don't see the point in me doing it. Right. I don't think it's a bad game, but I honestly don't think I would play just one more level.
Okay, that's fair. I definitely would play just one more level. I fully intend on beating this game, hopefully soon. And I can't wait for Christian to give me back my copy.
yeah, we need to work that out because I've been having it sitting here, but
that's when I so I can't wait to play more. I love this game, especially much better the second time. I found it kind of confusing the first time, so I don't know if my assessment is technically fair because this isn't the first time I played it. But there's been games that we've done that before with, so I think it's fair enough. It's been at least a year since I've tried to play it.
If you were interested enough in the game to really try to play it, after playing for an hour or two, I feel like you would be at that same point where you're at now, right? Where you're now comfortable with the game, the way it controls, the way it handles, the way the game flows. So I don't really see you playing the first mission more than one time here. I don't really see that being an issue, to be honest.
Yeah.
But so I think that's it for this one, at least for me. Jonathan, any final remarks before we sign off?
No, I think it's a great game. I think it's great seasonally. So if you're in the mood for something spooky but not too spooky, I think this is the perfect game for you. I always revisit Ghostbusters every Halloween. I watch it more often than that, but still, it's a Halloween staple in my house. We must watch Ghostbusters around the season. I listen to the song just for fun. Like I just listen. I like the song. I just think it's great.
Hey, this is a judgment-free zone. That's fine.
Right. Yeah, I recommend it. It is out there for all of your modern systems, including PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch.
Pop, so it's not that expensive or anything.
It's pretty cheap, and you can find it even cheaper. So I highly recommend picking it up. And that's pretty much it for me. Christian, where can we find us?
Right, yeah, so I mean, we're at all the usual places. It'll be linked wherever you're watching, of course. We haven't been doing much on the podcast side of things recently because we've been working on a video game and just have our lives to deal with, really. But we're hoping soon to have more to share with you guys about the video game. Maybe some screen grabs or some art assets or maybe even a little bit of gameplay within the coming months. So, of course, stay tuned for that. Whatever, words are hard. Yeah. And for everybody on the stream, because that's the place where you can see us do this live, unedited, and all of its terrible glory. We will be right back with the next episode.
Yeah, so stay tuned. But if you're not on the stream, thank you. you for watching and for continuing to support us. You don't have to, but you do, and we appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you all. Bye bye for now.
Bye bye.